Thank you. So, hi everyone. My name is Yaniv. I'm a product manager. I'll go through really quick slides to give you context about my education, the places I've been working for, and then I'll open it to your questions. I'll be the instructor for the class starting next week. And if you're registering the class, I'm looking forward to see you there. If there are still open places, please register. That's the only ad you can hear tonight, promise. So as you can see, some of those slides are not in English. That's for the reason that I'm not from here. I was born and raised in Israel. I moved to this country 10 years ago. And I started my career back in Israel as actually in the Israeli army as an engineer. This tiny little thing is the symbol of the IDF computer unit, where IDF is the Israeli Defense Force. I've been there for 5 out of the 3 mandatory years. Learned computer science, learned to coded for a few projects. Then I did my bachelor degree in a place called the Academic College in Tel Aviv. So I've been an engineer for about 8 years. Some of the companies that I worked for, well, actually all of them are companies that you never heard about. Some of them are so old that I had to actually go through the Internet Archive. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. That's archive.org. And get you the screenshots from June 24, 2001 or from July 4, 2006. And then I worked on a video platform called Blog TV. On all of them, I worked as an engineer, and then I realized that I want to do more of the business side, so I tried to do more of the product management type of roles, but I was not a product manager yet. I moved to work with clients, moved to do things that are closer to what people, to understand what people say about the product, how they experience the product, what their needs are, but still solving it with code and not with product management tools yet. And then I realized that what I really want to do is first study here. So I moved here to Atlanta, joined Emory, and then I started to work in companies here doing product management. First company I worked for is a company called Conterra. That's a Sequoia-backed company, or was, that was acquired 3 years ago, I believe, by the Singtel company, which is a Singaporean telecom company. We're building online ads, and whenever you hover those ads, we add those words, we will show you an ad. Some might call it annoying, we call it a revenue stream. It was a pretty good product. One of the challenges there was to build the product as a product manager from San Francisco with a team of engineers in Israel. Pretty cool experience. Working with a lot of customers here, and then spending another shift during the night working with the team in Israel, and then waking up very early to get some of their time back. So it's really nice. And then after 2 years, I moved to PayPal. In PayPal, I worked on 2 things. The first one was a product manager on something called digital goods. Digital goods for PayPal is everything that doesn't have a physical presence. This means things like music, or game credit, or transactions on Facebook, and so on. Part of what's important for PayPal as digital goods is the idea that you can no longer go to a PayPal experience and leave everything you're doing on a game or when you're listening to music, and you need to be in context. So PayPal developed a product, and I was part of that team that worked on what we call in-context experience, where the moment you're in a game, you want to buy energy in the game or currency in the game, you click on it, we open PayPal as one of the payment options, and then you can simply buy PayPal from within the page. And then I worked on something called social commerce. This was a project that I did as a kind of a blue ocean project, where it's not clear what is social commerce. My first task was to actually understand what do those words mean together. How can you bring together information from social or experiences that are social experiences and merge them with commerce experiences. Things that we looked at that time was something like sending money on Facebook, things that you do today on Facebook Messenger built in. Back then it was a separate PayPal app that one of the teams built. Other things are, how do you do transactions on Twitter? How do you use information from social graph to do transactions on a merchant site? Things like bringing all your friends to buy a present with you, or things like that. So part of this project was really building a lot of pilots and trying to get things done with those pilots, and learn as much as we can about social commerce, and bring together people from around PayPal and eBay to create products together. Then after 2 years with PayPal, I moved to Google. As someone who worked on social commerce, the best place to go to in Google was Google+. So I went to Google+, which was a great product, but not a lot of people thought like it. And I was fortunate to work on Google+ Sign-In, which later turned to be Google Sign-In. This, if you think about it, it's the Google button that you can see on app or web pages that allows you to, instead of share all of your information with the website or the app, just click on Google, and Google will share information that, only the basic information that is relevant for the app, for you to have the best user experience. This allows user to get the Google into the product or the app with the Google credentials only, without disclosing any other information that they're not willing to disclose with the app. Later I moved to Google Analytics. In Google Analytics I worked on 2 products. The first one was Google Analytics Premium, where I worked on some solutions for our premium customers. Most of Google Analytics is a free product. It's a huge product. Not sure if you guys used it, but you'll probably hear about it, use it in one stage of your career or another. And as users of Google Analytics Free, you get a limited set of features, pretty broad set of features, but somewhat limited. For the premium customers, there are different needs. Premium customers are customers that have millions of visitors per day, some of them per second, if it's a really popular article or really popular type of transaction. And these customers have slightly different needs. I worked on a team that developed some solutions for those specific customers. And then I moved to work on a product called Data Studio, which allows customers and users to bring data from different data sources, from like Google Analytics and others, into Google. And we built, as a team, we built a set of features that allows them to create really nice reports. Kind of taking all the information that you have in Google Analytics or any other place like spreadsheets or YouTube, or now it's really an open platform for any type of data source, and create a really nice set of reports on it that are custom based on your needs. After a while, I decided that I want to feel the excitement of a startup once again, and I went on and searched for a smaller company. So this led me to join SurveyMonkey. What you see here is the new logo for SurveyMonkey. The reason I mentioned it's a new logo will be clear in a second. In SurveyMonkey, I joined first as a team manager for 2 PMs working on growth. Growth in SurveyMonkey is everything from account creation through first surveys that you send, and then converting you into a user. And once you become a user, making sure that you're engaged as a user, and making sure that if you're a paid user, we retain you and you keep paying us every month or every year, depending on the program that you selected. After a while in this role, I moved to do the SurveyMonkey rebrand project. That's why I have the new brand of SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey, back last year, realized that the brand is great. People are really familiar with this monkey and the name when I say SurveyMonkey to most of the users that we ask, in a survey of course. It's really clear what it is and what we're doing, and they can recognize the brand. But there is something missing. The brand was not in the place that we wanted it to be. It didn't look as modern as our services actually were. And the company created a whole effort around changing the brand and delivering a new message for the company and for the product. We moved to, and now the product is, the main message for the brand is people-powered data. It's the idea that beyond data that you can see from something like Google Analytics, that is a lot of numbers, with people-powered data, it's the qualitative that you get, and you can ask different things and power your decisions with actual people in mind. To do that, we went through a project that spanned over 6 months, and in that project, we actually changed the whole website, the whole product. SurveyMonkey at that stage had a few different products, and all of them in one day had to change to look new. This means a lot of coordinations, a lot of product questions, a lot of engineering questions. To put things in perspective, we had about 4,600 pages that needed to change. That's only on the experience for logged out users. Those are the users that just see things that are search results or information about how to build surveys, even before they join the product and sign in and start using it. Then there are all those pages and flows that you need to change, and we're looking at about 17 different teams working together to one goal of changing the brand and making it look new and modern. A pretty cool project. It allowed me to bring everything that I learned throughout the years, from working with remote teams, through working on analytics, through experiments on the launch stage and so on. And it was really a nice success. On the day that we launched at 5 a.m., so people were up early, and everything worked fine, which was really nice. The only time that we had any issue was when we demoed the final result to the company in the all hands, but this was only for 5 minutes. So it was really, really nice to see the results of 6 months effort with really huge excitement among the team, launching in such a nice way. And this was my last slide. Now it's time for your questions. Yes, please.
So what were among the processes of what you consider successes that were consistent, and what are the issues that came up as far as failure?
You mean in this one specifically?
Yeah, well, in what you were doing.
Okay, so I'll repeat the question.
Project manager.
What are the things that you consider successes, and how do you look at failures, right? The things that I look at success.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, I just did.
Okay, sorry.
I can repeat it again. What are the things that I define as successes, and what do I define as a failure? I'll say that it depends on the project and the product and the stage that they're in. Success to me is when you define a goal in the beginning, or in the beginning of a project that you want to achieve with the product or with the team that you're working on, and you're able to either meet it or ideally exceed it. A failure is when you don't meet this goal or those goals, but it's not a valuable failure to me if you don't learn anything from it. If you just miss it and no one learns, and you don't do the post-mortem, then it's not a good failure.
So what I wanted to know was, what were key processes to create a success, or key processes that failed?
Okay, so what were key processes to create a success? I think for that, it's really in different stages of a product or a project, you have different processes. I can give you 1 or 2 examples. In Google, the success was built on many years of experience and then the process is what worked for the team before I joined Google Analytics, which was a really mature team. They had their own processes. So the first thing I did was learning those processes and see what I need, if any, to tweak. And this has to do with Agile, that I already knew how to work, but this team had a specific way to use it. It was about communication to all the different stakeholders about what's the status of the project on an ongoing basis, asking for help when you need it. Processes are nice, but sometimes you get stuck. Resources are great, but sometimes they're insufficient. So you need to be able to ask for help, and you need to be able to identify issues as early as possible. And when all of the above don't work, then you might end up failing. Yeah. Yes, please.
For teaching, what are the most important things that you want your students to take away from all of your teaching versus just reading about product management instead of attending your lectures? What's the biggest takeaways from your lectures?
Sure. So to repeat, what's the biggest takeaways from lectures that going to present. I think the biggest takeaway is that you can always try again. And when you're doing product management, I'll say almost any job, just going to the classroom or just watching a video is insufficient. You need to go and experience yourself and try, ideally succeed or fail as often as you can and as fast as you can.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Any tips for working with people remotely? Like, for example, let's say you're a PM in San Francisco or New York and your team's in Tel Aviv.
Mm-hmm.
As a PM, a lot of FaceTime is pretty key, but if it's a remote team, how do you manage relationships?
Great question. So, question is about tips for working with remote teams. In your example, or in my example, actually, working from San Francisco with the team in Israel. I think that the two main things that I will say is be there as often as you can with the team, spend some time with them. Definitely when you just start to work, so you'll be able to see who the people are and spend a week or two with them just to learn how they work, how you work, and define what should be the tools for you. And second, be very flexible with the tools that you define. Try something, try a way for, try some ways to create touch points in the end of the day on your side or the end of the day on their side, and make it a goal for you to do it every day or every 2 days, depending on the time difference and the pace of the project. But make sure you do it, and if things don't work, be really quick on identifying what doesn't work and try to change it.
Thanks.
Yes, please.
What's the first role that you had after being a
If you can speak up.
What's
sorry.
the first role that you had after being a software engineer between that and business school that was more towards product management?
What's the first role that I had?
Yeah.
So what's the first role I had after being an engineer and then in business school and then product management? I think that's a role that would fit any stage of my career and will definitely fit the logo that SurveyMonkey has, is always be curious. Curious about what's out there for you, what are you trying to achieve, what's the company goal, what do you know, and more importantly, what do you not know, and how do you get there to know that, and do it really fast. Be curious and fast will be the best tip. Yes, please.
So,
Sorry, I'll get back to you just after.
how would you, for people who have not done product management before, and if they want to enter product management with, let's say, mid-tenure, 10 years, so experience, for example, if I want to move from management consulting to product management, how difficult do you think a transition like that is, and what are some of the key things to keep in mind?
Great question. So the question was, for people who never did product management before, how do they do the transition? And in your example, moving from management consulting into product management. There are two things. First one is, can you do the job? And how, once you move to the job, can you do it? And this goes to the tip that you just that I just gave you about keep being curious and asking questions. But then the next question will be, how do I get that first job? And how do I explain to people that my skills are transferable? I went through that step many years ago, but it's still fresh, and I'm doing it as an alumni of Emory almost on a weekly basis, speaking with people that are trying to do the shift. And the tip that I have for people in that area is find something that is as close to product management as you can, even free of charge. The first, just after business school, the first thing I did, I graduated in 2009. Not sure if you guys remember, there was a recession, a historic one. I couldn't find a job. There are some, I can spend like 10 more minutes about how bad 2009 was. But as someone who really wanted to stay in this country, I created my own opportunities. I went and spoke with so many people. I created my own tech trip from Atlanta to here, spent 2 weeks with people I never met just to ask them about product management and about opportunities in their companies. In the end, when I graduated, I found another internship. Usually internship are between first and second year, with an ad agency company called 360i. With this company, it wasn't really a product management role. It was just, we need someone that can do this type of task. So I did the task that they were looking for. I created enough noise and value in the company for people to see who I am and understand that I can do more than the task that I came in for. And I learned really fast about online advertising. As a result, I was able to move from someone who did engineering for blogging platform to someone who can speak about online advertising. And my first role as a product manager was in a company that built online advertising. So just create those opportunities for you. Network like crazy, meet people, try to offer yourself to do a product task. It doesn't need to be an internship or anything like that. Go to meetups and find in the end of the meetup someone who says, I need help with the product management thing. Maybe I pay money, maybe it's only equity, maybe you don't do it full time. But create those opportunities for yourself, and once you do that, add them to your resume and you'll be able to start speaking in that language. In addition, any type of official certification like the class that we're offering is valuable. There is what you know from your day-to-day job, whatever it will be, and then there is the ability to speak the language and start using the tools and gain experience with them that is really valuable. Yes, please.
Is starting as an engineer common for product managers, and then transitioning into a business degree also common? Like going from any other position within the industry, more or less viable than what you went through?
There is the common and there is the viable, I would say, to my answer. The question was, is it common to transfer from engineering or from business school into product management? In terms of common, I think that I've seen more people transferring into product management from these two, from engineering or from business. And I'll say that this is probably because that's what the industry is used to. And the second part of my answer would be that it's something that so many people from so many disciplines can do. To be a product management means to be able to look at the problem from different angles, to put the hat of a customer for a few minutes, then to put the hat of the engineer, then to be able to put the hat of the UX and many other people, and then influence them to get something done. Can you do it without being an engineer before? Probably yes. Can you do it without business degree? Probably yes. Can you get the first job? This will be slightly harder because the industry is so used to getting people from specific degrees or specific path. But if you create your own path and you find, going back to my answer just a second ago, if you find the first or second opportunity to do product management roles, even if you're an art major or what have you, and you find someone who believes in you and you show the value that you create, now you're a product manager with just different degree. Make sense? And you had a question before, sorry.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, you told a little bit more of your story, and I think the only part we're kind of missing is between designer and business school. You said you were more interested in the business side of things and you worked with clients. Can you tell us a little bit more about other positions that you held before business school?
Sure. So the question is, you were missing a gap between being an engineer and going to business school, and that gap is, it's not really a gap. In all of my roles, I was an engineer, but I did something else in addition. So I was instead of being an engineer on an engineering team, I was an engineer on a professional services team. You're still doing the engineering work, but there is a good element of traveling to customer sites and speaking with them and coming back with a request, and then you do the coding. You might come back with some recommendations or ask to the product team, but you're still the engineer doing the integration. So I did two of those that were really helpful in two different companies.
So do you find yourself being a technical PM in your PM roles these days, or have you done a really good job of removing that role from your role?
I'm not sure I know So just to repeat your question, do I find myself more of a technical PM than anything else? I'm not sure I know what's the real difference between a technical PM and a PM otherwise, or a business, and there is the third one that is a business PM. I think that as a product manager, you need to be able to speak the language of all the stakeholders. You know, someone who is really good with algorithms is probably more comfortable speaking with a team that works on algorithms, for sure. But someone who's a generalist, and I consider myself a generalist as a product manager, can move fast or faster from one project to another without being technical specifically. Did I work on more technical products? Yes, I worked on an API for Google+, but there was also an element of user experience there, and how do you do the right design for the screen, and what's the right way to present content. So I try not to limit myself to those type of titles.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
How important did you, in your experience, was it to have an understanding of the technical skills that we use to build the products that you worked on?
So your question is how important it is to understand the technical aspects of products. I'll say that it's definitely helpful when you can understand technology. It's definitely helpful when someone someone sells you something and you say, and from a technical background you can say it doesn't make sense. But in the end of the day, as a product manager, you're not expected, and with some teams, depending on how strong the team feel about their profession, they expect you not to even consider yourself as someone who knows technology. It's kind of, you're doing the product, we're doing the engineering. It's easier for discussion, but it's as easy as it will be to discuss with a UX person when you know how to do layers in Photoshop. Of course, it will make it easier, but if you ask them to, hey, I'll just fix those pixels, it will be the same reaction as you will get from someone who you will say, I will just fix this algorithm, let me look at your VI and fix your code. It's definitely a benefit when you can speak the language. It's not a must-have, but it's a benefit. But you're not expected to solve engineering questions. You are expected to be smart enough when someone speaks about a queue, you better know what a queue means. When someone speaks about service architecture, if you never did service architecture, go learn and come back so you won't feel dumb in the discussion. But you don't need to really decide on how many servers do we need for this service versus that service, and what's the redundancy and so on. But do know what those things are and how to speak about them. Yes, please.
To continue on the topic of transition.
And you're next.
For people who are transitioning from engineering to product management, what are the key mistakes people usually do that you can highlight?
For people transitioning from engineering to product management, what are the key mistakes? I think that when you're trying when you continue to be the engineer and you're not trying to do the product work and you keep trying to solve the code and just let me fix it. I can still write scripts and do stuff, but I never try to do it because then I go too deep into something that I will not add the value that I should add, and I will take from the value that other people can add, and I won't be focused on the product tasks. The product tasks are different from engineering tasks, and they're different from UX tasks. I'll have the same answer for someone coming from UX to product. This is your previous role, now you're the product manager. Make sure that you have the broader picture and you can answer questions, you can take part in discussions, but be the product manager. Make sense?
Yep.
Yes, please.
I ask similar questions, but think back to your early career as a product manager. What is the most challenging thing you have met, and think of that you learned the lessons, and what advice you can give people who are similar in the new product manager role, maybe less than 12 months.
So question is, thinking back about my days of transitioning into product management, what are some of the big mistakes I did or challenges. I'll say that probably the biggest things were when I thought that I can do the estimations. Oh, I don't buy it. When you get to, no, it's not 2 days. It's much faster. Then you get to the point that first, who are you to do my estimate? You don't know my code. Second, you get to the place of, and what if your estimations are wrong? So it's about being able to disconnect yourself from your history, but still being smart about it. Other tips that I would say when you switch from engineering to product management.
Or maybe with no working experience and starting their new career as product manager.
When you just graduated and you're now a product manager. Then thinking that what you just learned in school is the right way to do things. And that's true for any role. I mean, you don't know product management when you just started. So be in the place that you're asking questions. Try to find a mentor that you can work with, that either from your own company or from other company that have been through the process that you're going through in their career or in similar ways, and learn from them as early as you can. And that's true for, I'll say, a lot of places where you're new. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Even after you feel that you know, there are some times that you should say, okay, this is the limit of my knowledge. Now feel comfortable to ask more questions. Because you're expected to, and that's true throughout your career as a PM, you're expected to know a lot of things and always be in the place of asking questions, either as a way to learn more, or as a way to lead discussions and get people to share their experiences and their point of view as a way to proceed and get the goals that your project needs to go to. Yes, please.
So to follow up on the previous question, how would you get better at making estimates for your team?
So to follow on how do you get better on doing estimates for your team, as a PM, you don't do estimates. You shouldn't, because some of us might say, yeah, I know how it should look like and how much it should take, but you don't. First, it's doing estimations for development or for UX is really hard for people who are doing it, who are writing the code. And you're so far away from the code that you shouldn't do it. What's relevant for you to do when you want to speak about times will be get to the cadence of these are the estimates, this is how far we get from the estimates in actual deliverables, and then decide that, oh, most of the time we miss by 10%, or most of the time we're actually early, so I can squeeze some more time or ask for some more for faster delivery, but that's about it. And definitely when you communicate upper, and then add some buffer to the estimations, and don't try to do the estimations yourself. You don't have the tools, you don't have the info or the capabilities to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
So were you involved in either leading the goals or following the goals of your tasks?
So were I involved in leading the goals or following the goals of my task? I've been in all of the above. I worked in projects from the very initial stages, like in PayPal, of how do we define this area of product, through projects that these are the things we want to achieve, this is the goal for the whole company, and this is my share of the goals. So I did a mix of both. Yes, please.
So here, so you have to create a customer application, for example, whether it's internal or external, doesn't matter. And you're faced with the decision whether you need to create the application in-house, on the platform in-house, or you buy a package or you get a third-party vendor to build it for you. Have you had that experience before? And if you have, what do you recommend for a new product manager who doesn't know, for example, what decision to make in that situation?
So the question is about when to buy, when to an external product, when to build, or when to bring in an external company to do the project for you. There are so many options there and so many parameters that I can't give you an answer that will be the one size fits all. It's really something you need to consider for every project. I would say that some of the things that you need to consider when you come to make a decision about it is what are the skills that you have in your team. If you don't have first, what are the skills that you have on the team? How are these skills relevant to the skills you need for the project? Then if there are gaps, what will it cost you in terms of time and money to cover those gaps? It can be hiring new people or sending team members to a class or waiting until they get the knowledge, or bringing people from other teams in the company. And then what are the alternative costs of doing it outside? And when you do something outside, what will you get in the end? I worked on a project where when I got to the project, it was working on the new version of it after the company went and asked for a third party to build a solution. That solution didn't work. We thought that we can do it, but it worked, but not to the extension that we wanted and not to the scale that we needed it to work. So we went on and started to build one ourselves. But since it wasn't our core competency, just the planning took us a very long time. And that's only one example. I can't make a call based on this for all the projects. Just analyze it based on what you have in front of you, how big the problem is. Do you have the tools? Do you have the skills? What can you bring from outside? Makes sense?
I was wondering how your deliverables change from the beginning of a project through towards the end, and what are some of the deliverables that you find to be tedious and that you don't want to do, and what are some of the ones that you find to be rewarding and fun?
I like it. So the question is about deliverables. How do the deliverables change between different stages of the project? And then more of a personal one, what are the type of deliverables that I like versus the ones that I don't? I'll start with the first part of your question. The first stages of a project or the first steps of working on a product, the deliverables are things like understanding the need or the market or anything like that. So these are deliverables around research. It can be speaking with users and you come back with user interviews. It can be analytics of the market, so you come back with financials on opportunity and things like that. And it can be, in some cases, you have an idea, you build a prototype, and then the deliverables are the prototypes as well as the results of that prototype. You know, if you're familiar with the term MVP or minimal viable product, then it's let's build something instead of doing research and asking customers. Let's actually put something in front of customers, and then our deliverables are the minimum product and the results that we see from customers. Then later, as the project, it's clear what the goal is, the deliverables will be things like a roadmap for the project. This roadmap will be about the different stages that you want to build the project in. You will add to it something like a PRD or a product requirement document where you define all the requirements that you know at that stage. There are different approaches for PRD. There are those who say that PRDs should always update. I look at it as a PRD is a snapshot of the requirements, and on an ongoing basis you use other tools. But that's another discussion that we can open later. But basically you create a list of your requirements, then you add it to whatever system your team is using, be it Jira or any other tool that capture things that are called user stories, where you describe each of those deliverables and requirements in more details in a way that engineers and UX can work with. Then there will be things that are not coming from you as a product manager, rather from other team members, like a mock-up from UX, or input from a customer session that comes from a customer research team, or a prototype that comes from a working prototype that comes from engineering, or a demo. And there are different things throughout the project. When the project gets closer to launch, you probably have, or ideally earlier, you have a launch plan where you know what's the sequence of launching things. At earlier stage, you will also have ideally a testing plan, which will include the things that you want to test to say that your project is valid, and that what you expect when you give specific input is actually happening, as well as some detailed requirements coming from engineering about structure of the system, if it's a service-oriented or what have you. But these will not be your deliverables, rather other team members. But as a product manager, you need to make sure that all of those are in place. Ideally, you'll have one of the deliverables will be a list of expected deliverables. Kind of meta, but you need to know what you're missing as you're going through the project. On what am I missing? What are the things that I like versus those that I don't? I think that I don't really like to update PRDs. I like to capture the information in a PRD in the beginning of the project and go and use other tools on an ongoing basis. So we don't need to always fix the 60 or 90 pages document that we wrote 6 months ago. What I really like is the opportunity to work with customers and actually uncover their pain and then solving it. Yes, please.
Can you share some best practices on really getting to know your customers, empathizing with them, how often you should do it, if you have any personal go-to methods?
Sure.
Besides SurveyMonkey, of course.
I like it. I see that you listen. So what are some of the tools that I like when getting information from customers or asking them questions? There are so many tools, there are books about it, and there are, if I need to pick one or two that I really like, are those that involve the different team members and not only yourself as a product manager. These are things like design sprint, when you think about a problem for a week, and in different parts of that week, you go and you speak with customers first about their pain, then about your idea to solve this pain, and then ideally at the end of that week on your deliverables. That's one very useful tool. It allows you to go with customers throughout kind of a cycle of solving identifying a problem all the way to solving it and getting the smiles and the nods from the customers if you did your work right. Or you do your work right and you get no's, but then the result is that you know what's not working. This is valuable as well. Another tool that I really like is something that some colleagues who used to work for Intuit taught me, that are about shadowing customers, which is about going to customers' environment. You know, if it's it was back in PayPal where we went to speak with small businesses, but it wasn't about here's a list of questions, tell me how you do them, which you can get from a survey. Rather, sit with those customers and see what they experience as they go through their day. See how often do they open your product, if any. You know, some customers don't. See how often do they open your competitors. How do they use pen and paper to do something that you expect them to do electronically, things like that. And as their availability allows, asking them questions about what are you trying to achieve now? What can you do? What if you had this solution or that solution? How will it change your behavior and things like that? But really spending a lot of time with them. And then there is the information you can learn from data. That you put something in front of people and you let them play with it and you look at the numbers. But that's not really on the interaction with customers, it's rather looking at what customers are doing with your product that you put in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please.
Oh, no,
Me?
yeah.
Right here. Okay, cool. I have a question about the transition because I hear a lot of like engineering and product design on this side. Coming from a sales perspective, how often do you see anyone from sales transition into product? And then what are the skills that are transferable from that area into, like, let's say, product management? If you can like touch on that.
Yeah, great question. So question was, how do you transition, how often do I see people transition from sales, and how feasible is this transition from sales into product versus those from engineering or from design? Feasible. I think that I don't see it often, and I think this goes back to what the industry is accustomed to do. You know, when you send your resume and people don't see the exact match, and this is relevant for how many people you see moving from product to sales.
Right.
Because people have very limited time on the hiring process, and they want to get the best talent that they don't need to invest, which makes sense, but is not great for us. That's why I'm really a big believer in creating your own path and finding your project. In terms of what are transferable skills from sales to product, for a good salesperson, or what I think is a good salesperson, then the ability to listen is great for a product manager. You know, where there are those salespeople who speak and speak and speak, and then there are those who listen. Some might say that, and I would say that those who listen get better results. I don't have numbers for that, but that's a hunch. But the ability to listen and uncover problems, and then uncovering for those problems, what do you have to offer for as a solution, that's something that any good salesperson have that they can bring to product. The ability to work close with customers and understand their need is really key element that salespeople can bring in. Other stuff that salespeople can bring into product is the ability to think of multiple projects all the time and bring relevant information from each one of them and influence based on that. Think about a salesperson who has a portfolio of 5 or 6 or 20 different customers, each one with their own unique need, and you're able to come back to your office and say, I heard all of these requests, and I think that this one is the one that is most relevant. That's such a great feature that you can have as a product manager. Yes, please.
Yeah, my question was, how do you convince the business stakeholders of the value of MVP, the lean idea to fail fast?
Okay, the question is, how do you convince people in business of the value of an MVP or the idea of failing fast? It depends on what stage are you trying to convince. If it's a company that is billions of dollars and never did an MVP, it will be a hard sell. If you're just starting with an idea, or it's mid, or it's a smaller project that you want to experience with, it will be easier. Sometimes the only way to convince is to create your own project with someone who is willing to build it, run it without anyone knowing, without the permission, you know, with the better ask for forgiveness than for permission, and then show the result and say, this is the MVP, this is what we learned, this is why it's relevant for us, let's invest more in it.
What's some examples of early projects in your career that were different than software engineering, that were into more of the product side after you acquired more knowledge about like online advertising? Or
you mean from my days as a product manager, or?
From your earlier days as an engineer, what were some of the smaller, like more product-y projects that you started to do?
So question is, what are some of the more product-related projects that I did as a software engineer before I moved into product? The best example I can give is a project I did for that company that about the content for the mobile content, where I had an idea of using our cards to bring in content from podcasts. You know, it's 2018, so you guys know what a podcast is. Back in 2006, it wasn't as clear. And the idea of creating something that
using those cards to deliver content from podcast. First, podcasts were really new. Definitely not as popular as they are today. Second, there was not anything that the company thought about before, and I became the product manager of that, in a sense that I thought about the idea, I went and created my own research, I found some examples, I built my own prototype and tried it, but in the end of the day, there was no market for it, or there was no need, and it was hard to convince, but the exercise was still relevant. The building something, researching for it, and so on. Yes, please.
So
And you're next.
assuming that a lot of students in your class are trying to switch into product management, and you'll be teaching a lot of skills every week. So how will students get to put those skills and concepts into real use while they are studying with you? So will you be doing a project with them all through these two months? Or so?
Great question. So question is, for assuming that people who are doing the class are people who are trying to make a switch from other roles into product management, how do they learn throughout the class? And in the class we have a final project, and we have projects on an ongoing basis that I'll be checking, you'll submit, and I'll check the results and give you feedback on those that are relevant to the work that we do in the class and are relevant to the work of product manager.
So is it like a group thing that you make groups in the class and then they proceed with, or it's like
a mix.
individual project? Okay.
Yes, please.
How's your approach different working at a large company as a product manager versus a startup as a product manager?
So for a large company, how is the approach different for working for a large company as a product manager versus a startup company as a product manager? I think that in a startup company, the fact that you have one title doesn't mean that you're doing only this. It means that your role changes all the time, and it's something that you need to love. Because the role changes, the company might change, the product might change all the time, and the structure of the team might change. So it's really about moving fast and being very adaptive to changes and to a lot of moving parts. In bigger companies, the changes are not as frequent, and you don't have as much influence on the product as you would have in a startup company. In a startup company, you can be in a place where you are the only product manager, depending on the size of the company, of course, or you can be the one that's responsible for all of our markets outside of the US. Things like that are reasonable in a startup company. In a company like Google, you can be in a team of Google Analytics where you're part of 20-something team of product managers only, and then you're only doing one portion of the product that will be a line in an announcement in 6 months. So it's really different scope, but in a startup company, on the other hand, you will ideally get to the numbers of a Google Analytics, where in Google Analytics, when you change something, you have millions of users that are using the feature that you just built. It's different scope of your responsibility, but a different type of influence on the numbers. Yes, please.
Two questions. So, one, what are the challenges of working on a new product like Google Plus versus working on a mature product like Google Analytics? And second, how do you engage and motivate resources like developers, UX designers, etc., who don't necessarily report to you directly?
So let's do it one by one. First one was what are the differences between working on a new product like Google Plus versus a more mature product like Google Analytics. The main difference is that on a new product, you constantly think about new ideas that are out of nowhere or adjacent to the ideas that you already thought about, but you're executing a lot of new things, and you're learning on the fly, and you always need to convince people of the validity and the value that your product brings. While in an older product like Google Analytics, the value is clear to most users, and you're building add-ons to those values. You're trying to extend the value. You have customers that are choosing you every day, and you need to make sure that they keep choosing you, that you keep bringing value, and you're adding to this value. In the case of Google Analytics Premium, you need to convince them that not only you bring value, it's value that is worth paying, and it's more valuable than any other alternative that they have and that they can pay for. And then as a PM, that's for the product organization overall, but for you on a daily basis, on something like Google Plus, where you build the product, you're more likely to work on your ideas than on ideas coming from customers, while on something like Google Analytics, you'll get a lot of feedback from customers, and you'll get a lot of different business needs, and based on those, you'll create a vision and you'll create a roadmap. And then you had a second part.
Yes, how do you motivate and engage with resources in the company, like developers, UX designers, etc., who don't necessarily report to you?
They're most likely not going to report to you. The question is, how do you motivate people like engineers and UX and others that don't report to you to do the work? First thing you need to do is you need to deliver a vision to them. Ideally, you'll work with them when you start to learn what they value and start building a relationship and understand what they know about the product and about the company and the vision. With them and with the input you'll get from your managers, from the company goals, and from customers, you'll define the vision. And as you work on defining that vision, you'll get them involved on, here is a version of the vision, what are your thoughts, and so on. So you'll make them part of that vision. And once this stage that I can refer to as the setup stage ends, then you'll make sure that with that vision and the roadmap that you defined, you constantly work with them on helping them reach that vision together. So you need to be a partner with all of them. You probably don't have the capacity to be partner with everyone, but at least with the leads that you work with directly. And as a partner, you need to first give them the support they need to achieve their goals. Sometimes it means fighting for them so no one will take them to other projects, or convincing why what they're doing is valuable and really representing them in other cases. Sometimes it's simply being the person who brings the data and allows them to excel in their work, and on a constant way keep working toward that vision and show them what's the value that they bring and why their work is important. Yes, please.
Last question. Sorry.
Okay, so you. You got the last one, no pressure.
You were describing how different working at a startup or a big company is, and it looks like in a startup you have more responsibility, more influence and impact, etc. What would you say is, what did you like and what is really interesting in doing a PM work in a big company then?
Sure, so the question is, it sounds that from what I said before that there is more responsibility in a startup, and with that, what do I like in a big company? You can like so many other things that are not responsibility. You can like influencing a lot of company. You can like being able to be part of something really big. Like working on Google Analytics is awesome. It's like you're working on something that at one point, if I remember the use case correctly, it was 70% of internet traffic was using Google Analytics. These are things that you don't get in a startup. When you get it in a startup, it's like really crazy successful startup. So it's really exciting. Then you get to work with some really smart people on so many different aspects. You can work on analytics today, on Plus tomorrow, or in my case yesterday, and next you'll work on something totally different. There are so many opportunities, and you work with so many people on a project in Google Analytics can involve people from 6 different teams or 10 different teams that need your input or that you are part of their project and so on. You don't get it in a startup because your focus is so narrow. There are I can't say that one is better than the other. There are so many pros and cons for each one of them. It's really where I say the only thing that matters is what size of company and what type of team and product makes you happy on Monday. This was last one?
Yeah, last one.
I can take another one.
I think there's more, people can ask questions.
Oh, so you have
after.
some online?
No, people can ask questions after, like individually.
Sure.
I just give room for people who want to know.
Sounds good.
All right, let's give them a round of applause.